Okay.
Hi, my name is Susan, and I wanted to share how I became a Christian Scientist. I was in the marching band in high school, and one of the girls in my squad was a Christian Scientist. And we used to have the most amazing discussions about God and what her concept of God was, and how her family utilized this understanding of God and God's spiritual laws to heal themselves of all sorts of ailments. And she had shared with me healings, that the family had had. And I was just fascinated with this, and it just seemed so amazing. But the contradiction, of course, is it seems so amazing, but at the same time, it seems so right. The things that she would tell me about God just seemed so right deep inside of me, and I just couldn't argue with her thinking. It just made so much sense. And so she became a very dear friend of mine, and like I said, these conversations would go on, and after a while I started attending the church with her, the Christian Science Church, and but never actually became a scientist at that point in my life. But very much, like I said, went to services, was reading the periodicals, read science and was reading Science and Health, that kind of thing. And then my life went off into another direction, and I grew up, as we all do. And I got to a point in my life where I was looking for a healing, because I had been diagnosed with an incurable disease, which was wreaking havoc daily on my life, and I had been suffering for 4 years at this point. And I had been to many medical practitioners, had tried many different avenues for healing, and none of them afforded me any kind of aid whatsoever. And then one day it occurred to me that my friend back in high school, who at this point I had lost touch with, but I remembered my friend back in high school, and she had given me, as I mentioned, periodicals that I would read, the Christian Science Sentinel, the Christian Science Journal. And I knew that back in my apartment, I knew that I still had a copy of a Christian Science journal. And in the journal, there is a listing, a directory of Christian Science practitioners. And these are people who you can call and ask for prayerful help when you have an issue, whether your issue is a disease or your issue is, say, employment, or you're having a relationship issue, or whatever the issue is, they can help you. So I thought to myself, wow, this magazine's got to be at least 10 years old at this point. But I think it's someplace, in my apartment. I'll look, So I did. I found the journal, and I thought, well, who am I going to call? Well, I just opened it up, and I found the town closest to me. And then I just chose the practitioner at the top of the list, because I didn't know what else to do. And so I called him on the phone, and I didn't even know, obviously, if the phone was even going to work at this point after 10 years. But I called him on the phone, and sure enough, this practitioner answered. And I told him what my problem was, that I had been dealing with an incurable virus that they told me they couldn't help me with, the medical field. And he said to me, "Oh, my dear," he said, "you don't have to worry about a thing." He said, "God never created this. He loves you. He would never do this to you," which was quite an amazing statement, I felt at the time. But, it just seemed so comforting. And he seemed so sure of what he knew about God, and that, I was not affected by this in any way. I could not be touched by this in any way. And so he said to me that he would take my case, and And I said, well, do you want me to do anything? Do I need to do anything? And he said, no, my dear. He said, you just call me back tomorrow. He said, I don't want you to worry about this anymore. I just want you to let it go, and I'll take up the work, and you give me a call tomorrow. And I said, okay. And I hung up the phone, and I gotta admit, when I hung up the phone, I felt this sense of relief in a way. He just seemed so sure and confident, in his statements about God loving me. And I'm here to tell you, within an hour, all pain and swelling and discomfort and everything that I had been going through for 4 years disappeared. Never to be seen, heard, or felt again. And when this happened to me, obviously, it changed my life for the better, of course. But I so wanted to know more about this, and I decided I wasn't going to let it go. I was blessed enough for it to come into my life once when I was in high school, and really didn't pursue it completely at the time. And I thought, I'm not going to let this go. I've got to have this in my life. It's wonderful. It's glorious. And so that's how I became a Christian Scientist. I started attending church, and after a while just continued with healings. Like, for instance, I had been a smoker for, oh my gosh, 20 years. And that was a challenge, that healing. But healing in a lot of ways can also be about purification of sense and self, and becoming more godlike. And I so much wanted to be a member of the Mother Church that I wound up being healed of smoking, because it became more important to me to be a member of the Mother Church than to obviously smoke cigarettes. So, as I mentioned, that was just 2 of my healings. There have been plenty more. But Christian Science has changed my life, and I'm so grateful for being a member of our church here in East Rochester.